Good afternoon. This is Miesha Johnston, and I'm a Starseed Awakening radio show. And we have a wonderful guest here, Bret Oldham, is going to be joining me very briefly. And very soon, I'm going to just share a few things with you about the organization. Starseed Awakening is an organization of several groups that I hold. I have 3 on the internet a week. One's a MK Ultra group, and I have a facilitator that facilitates that for me. I'll have 2 experiencer groups on. These are go-to-meeting groups, and then also twice a month I have the Starseed Awakening group. And then on the other one, so the first Friday of every month, I have Starseed Awakening Experiencer Group. And then the third is Starseed Awakening Group. And these are groups where people can share their life, their experiences, their ET contacts, their Starseed life and what their journey is and how they're living it and how their missions are going about. You know, just to tell you a little bit about Starseed. Starseeds are starborn mortals, human beings with alien DNA. Starseeds have been coming since the beginning of Earth's history, getting experience in being human and learning many lessons, incarnating over and over again until they were ready for the awakening. In the age of Aquarius and the Ascension, as it started in 2012, the Starseeds of Light agreed to forget who they were born as humans. Many come with special missions to serve humanity in some way. They are now awakening to who they really are and sense that something spectacular will soon happen. They too are here to help and awaken. A Starseed is a person whose origin is from another planet. Starseeds individuals who feel excitement and longing upon learning that they might have originated from another world. They experience the aloneness and separateness that the human condition, but also have the sense of being foreigners on this planet. They, of course, find the behavior and the motives of society very puzzling and illogical. As Starseeds agreed to forget who they were when they came on this planet, and they do not remember that they're Starseeds until they awaken. And there are so many, 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 many awakening now, and knowing that they feel like they just aren't fitting in, that they don't fit into this planet, and they're from elsewhere. So I'm going to make a couple announcements, as I mentioned, of the Starseed group. I also have, just for another 3 days, the art exhibit is going. I had an art exhibit at the Enterprise Library, the extraterrestrial art exhibit, and that is on 25 East Shelbourne Avenue. It is at Windmill and Las Vegas Boulevard, and it goes until April 15th. It's been from February 27th to April 15th. So if you get a chance and you want to zip on over there and just go into the gallery and check it out. So in order to get a hold of me, you can email me at starmiesha99@yahoo.com. You can go to the Facebook, which is Starseed Awakening. I also have a like page, Starseed Awakening. And you can go to our local, which is Meetup, which is a meetup, and it's Starseed Awakening and Psychic Awareness Group. Now, I just also wanted to tell you that Bret is going to be speaking for MUFON this coming week, and I know he can tell. What's the date on that again?
The 16th.
The 16th. So he'll be speaking, and we'll give you the information on where that is at. Let's see. The only other thing I can think of is my website. If you'd like to check out my website and listen to some of the past lectures and interviews and things like that, I have had guests that did it. I've got my own story on there. You can go to www.starseedawakening.net. So one other thing, Super Soldier Summit is coming. Super Soldier Summit will be on May 30th through June 1st. And then following that, July 29th will be the For Real Conference. I'm going to be speaking at both of those, so I would hope that you could come. That's here in Las Vegas, and look at my website for more information about that. So now I'd like to tell you a little bit about Bret. Bret Oldham has been researching and investigating the paranormal since his teen years. Together with his wife, Gina, they are Halo Paranormal and are based out of Las Vegas, Nevada. In fact, they just moved back here not too long ago. Aren't we lucky? I'm so happy. Their research encompasses a wide spectrum of paranormal, including ghosts, UFOs, and cryptozoology. They have been featured on numerous radio shows, magazines, and newspaper articles, internet, local, and national TV in the U.S. and New Zealand, as well as Europe. They're including shows as the Discovery Channel, CBA Canada. They were also on Ancient Aliens, and so you can catch them. There's about 3 that haven't aired yet, but there were 2 that they were already on. Their personal accounts of the long alien abduction experience and the ghost stories of Las Vegas. Bret and Gina will be sharing a lot more about that. And Bret has a wonderful book out called Children of the Greys. And it is a story of his life and the experience with the Greys, the hybrid program, and a lot more. So once again, I'm going to let him announce that he's going to be, where he's exactly going to be on the 16th. But that is at the MUFON. I ordinarily know the name, but they have a new location. So we'll find that out if we don't already know it and get that information to you as well. So I want to thank Bret for coming, and I'm going to just turn the mic over to you, Bret. And we're just going to be chit-chatting here. Tell me about your life. You can start with your childhood and, just go right to town. On the half hour, I mean not the half hour, but halfway through the show, we will break, and then when we come back, that will be the time people can ask you questions. Okay. All right.
Well, great. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me on your show. It's kind of cool right here with the comfortable surroundings and everything. It's one of the most comfortable situations I've been in with the show here with a nice comfy couch, so I like this. Yeah, I wrote Children of the Greys and released it about a year ago. It took me well over 20 years to get the courage to come out with my story, and with the urging of my wife and a good friend of mine, Sandy Nichols, who's also an abductee. They kind of helped me get through it. So it was a 2-year process to write it. It was hard reliving a lot of those memories and stuff, and I just felt that I had something to offer. I remembered so much, and I wanted people to know the reality of what happened to me. So I figured that I could help bring about more public awareness of the alien abduction phenomena, and also to let so many other abductees and experiencers out there know that they're not alone. And a lot of people could relate to some of the similar type things that's happened to me. I wanted to be a voice for them, and also to let them know that you don't have to become a victim to this, that you can get through it. It's not easy, but it is possible, and I'm living proof of it, as you and others have experienced it. So I have some great contributors to the book. Dr. Leo Sprinkle, who's long time, very well-respected UFO researcher. He wrote the foreword for me, and oh, is that right? Yeah, he does a lot of that. We've had some great conversations. I love that guy, and a good friend of mine, Brent Rains, also an author and longtime UFO researcher, and Sandy Nichols, the guy I mentioned. I asked him to contribute, and well-known abduction researcher Kathleen Martin. I'm sure you know of her. She was gracious enough to contribute as well, and then Brad Steiger, the legendary Brad Steiger, such a great guy. He's a good friend, and I asked all of them to contribute. I wanted to do a chapter in the book on the alien agenda, and there is so many different opinions about that. So I wanted to get this cross-section of people involved in the field with a long history, and so I dedicated a whole chapter to that. And it was nice that none of them really came out and said they truly know, what the alien agenda is, so that I really appreciated that. But it was interesting to get their perspective of things as well. So, but I started from the beginning in the book, and I didn't leave anything out. I knew if I was going to write a book that I was going to lay it all out there. Some of it's embarrassing to some degree. It was hard to relive it, to go through it. I stopped many times, I would start getting really depressed, and I'd have to take 2 or 3 weeks off and sort of like build the strength back up, to get through it. But I eventually did, and so.
For 10 years.
We're going to share a mic here, so we're going to kind of be doing back and forth thing here, but it is a difficult thing to do. I know several people right now that are writing books, and I'm glad the more people that come out with their experiences. I hope hundreds of books come out about this, because there's so many people out there that are keeping quiet just like I did, and it's something. And I'm glad there's people out there like you that have these support groups, because they're so needed. I didn't even realize myself like how needed that is until I came out with the book, and people from all over the world started contacting me. And it was things like, I've never told anybody this before, but something in your book, moved me to share this with you. And it's some horrific stuff, it's some traumatic stuff, and sometimes positive stuff, I mean, there's both aspects of this out there, but in the abduction scenario with the Greys, a lot of that's more probably traumatic than anything, and it has been my experience as well. I have had some positive stuff that I've tried to take out of it, and so I cover all that. I try to include a lot of my brother's an award-winning artist here in Las Vegas. In fact, I wish you'd have gotten your art show that you talked about there.
I love that. I'll be having another art show.
I will definitely let. He does some all kinds of art, but he does some art along the lines of that as well. He designed the cover of the book, and he also did the sketches in the book for me. So he was nice enough to look at my stick figures. Basically, I'm the musician, he's the artist, so and he did a great job of that, because I kind of wanted to give people an idea of like what you see, through my eyes, what you do see under these various circumstances that you're put into. And I'm currently working with a 3D graphics guy now, that's coming up with Noah Brewer, that contacted me through Facebook, and he's coming up with some stuff, and it's really interesting how these artists are able. It's almost like they're able to tap into your consciousness and feel that energy because my brother, when he showed me what he came up with, that's actually in the book, I was floored. I was like, "Were you there?" It was like that close. I do my best to describe it, and the same thing happened with this 3D graphics guy. The chapter "We Want Your Sex," there was a lot of things in there that's a little tricky to talk about, publicly, but I do lay it all out in the book, and there was one of the areas from the experiments that were done with multiple people, and he wanted to duplicate that area of the craft, and he showed it to me just from the description that I did in the book, and he was very, very close. So. And so he's still working on it, so that helps, I think, when other people have these experiences, can see those type of things, maybe relate. I know that that same description that I was just talking about, a lady, Bridget Smith, she contacted me and said, "Wow, I'd never seen anybody or heard about anybody that had this same type of furniture type material with the sexual experiments, and lo and behold, it happened to her as well. You know, so it's important for us all to come out with these books. If nothing, if you can't do a whole book, you know, articles, anything you can come out to help get your story, because the more we share with each other, the more we learn about our experiences from each other, and the more we can cope with it and help, you know, get through the whole thing. So, you know, that's pretty much what what's the book's about and who's contributed to it, and you know, where I'm at with it right now.
That's exciting. And I think she showed that on the air, so people can see the book. So, where would you like to start? How about at 5 years old? I understand was your first contact.
Yeah, it started, unfortunately for me, at a very young age. I lived in a farmhouse in southern Illinois, and I think we actually I Googled it and got an aerial view. I've talked about it several times before, but this is the first time anybody's actually getting a chance to see the actual property where it started for me. And it was literally out in the middle of nowhere, in farmland in southern Illinois, not too far from the Kentucky line. And as you can see, anybody that happens to be watching this, that it's just surrounded completely by fields. There's a gravel road that goes up beside the house, and you know, it's just your typical rural America farmhouse, and not really a spot where you would think something like this would happen. But in the wintertime, my parents would shut off the top part of the house. That particular house had a stairwell in the middle of the house, and that actually had a door to it, and you could close it. And so to save on the heating bill, when it started getting cold in the late fall, they would shut off the top part of the house, and my brother and I would sleep on the floor in the living room on mats, just old quilts and stuff, you know, and my sister got the couch, and that's pretty much how we spent, you know, 3 or 4 months during the winter. And it was at that time of year, it was late fall, we were sleeping on the floor. Of course, it's very quiet out there, and one night was awakened by, I heard somebody speaking to me, and I opened my eyes, and there was a very bright light coming through the side window that was closest to the road. So there was obviously no street lamps or anything like that out there, and I wasn't afraid. I was just a curious young boy. I looked around. I thought maybe it was my stepdad calling for me for some reason. Really couldn't figure out what was, you know, who this voice was. It kept urging me, coaxing me to come to the window, and just typical things like, I have something to show you, what you would do to entice a child. I got up, and you know, it was cold, and I was walking across the hardwood floor in bare feet, and I didn't go to the window to my left where the light was coming in, but I felt I was being drawn to the front window, which was really just around the corner, but it was the front of the house. And as I walked up, yeah, I brought a sketch of that. I walked up to the window, and we had these thin white curtains, and I raised my hand up and pulled the curtain back. And as I did, that's when my life changed forever. Face to face with what we know now is a typical gray, a small gray, literally 1.5 feet in front of me. The shock of that was something that it left an indelible mark on my psyche, to the point where up until a year ago, I would still have nightmares about it. I would wake up terrified. I would have this same experience as a kid, pulling the curtain back, and there he was. You know, there was 2 other ones standing out further. Actually, in the sketch my brother Jeff did, you can even see the tree that seems to be still there from the aerial view. They were standing further back there. And before I could scream, react, or anything, because you have to understand, I led a very sheltered life up to that point, you know, just out in the country. I hadn't even seen people of color, you know. I mean, it was that sheltered.
Oh, sure.
I didn't have comic books. We had an old black and white television. I didn't really have an interest in television. I was usually just one of those kids that went out and played all the time, you know, outdoors and stuff. And as I was walking across the mud porch, they popped up once again in the window. But this time the fear wasn't like it was, you know, from the initial meeting. And I walked out onto this little porch, which is actually still there. And I remember like feeling kind of big, you know, sort of something that pops in like your head as a child, because I'm standing on this porch that's maybe 2 feet high at best, a foot and a half, 2 feet high, but they were so small, and I was standing above them, you know, and I remember thinking like how big I was, you know, to them. They coaxed me down onto the ground with them, and they basically just led me out across the front yard there and into the field, the adjacent field. And I don't remember like getting on the craft or anything, you know. That's as far as my memory takes me.
Is that like a cornfield?
It either had to be a cornfield or a soybean field, because that's all they plant around there, you know. So it was one of the two. And after that, my mom was talking to us kids about this movie going to come on. And it was The Wizard of Oz, and she's like, "Oh, you guys are gonna love it," all this stuff, and she really hyped it up. So we all sat down one night to watch The Wizard of Oz, and I was really excited about it because she'd been telling about all this wonderful movie, and I was really enjoying it until the part came where the flying monkeys came in, and you know, they took Toto and Dorothy, and there's something that just triggered in my subconscious about the little weird-looking creatures kidnapping, you know, the characters in the movie. So
something about Wizard of Oz, Bret. There's definitely something. I mean, in fact, see, I deal with a lot of the MK Ultra mind control stuff.
yeah.
That Wizard of Oz has many, many triggers in it for exactly this type of thing.
Oh.
That makes people react. Yeah, it's something I found out in my research. And the monkeys affected me the same way. I freaked when I saw the monkeys. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, that's why it's good people like us share our stories.
Yeah.
I had no idea that other people were affected like that.
Yep.
It sent me into hysterics again as a child. My mom couldn't understand, you know, like what is this scaring you, you know? And I ran into the other room, and you know, I didn't want to watch the rest of the movie. It was like that traumatic.
Oh, my, yeah.
So I think they knew that. They had probably already implanted me at that point, because at that point, because I remembered I was telling my mom about the little guys that came and got me.
Right.
But, you know, it was like, oh, that's your imaginary
Of course,
friends
your
and nothing
imaginary
like that. And if there's parents out there listening, I'll tell you right now, and this has to do with paranormal or with the abduction phenomena, if your child starts talking about the little people in his room, please pay attention. And there is imaginary friends, don't get me wrong. Kids have imaginary friends. There's so much stuff that goes on that that kids really need to be paid attention to, really need to be listened to, because you could be missing out on something that's very important that's happening in your child's life, and it's affecting them psychologically in a way that you have no idea.
Oh,
you know,
absolutely. And the imaginary friend can definitely even be ETs. I mean, my imaginary friend turned out to be this fuzzy little ET guy. So, yes, this is so important that parents do. These kids aren't really not going to come up with something like this unless they've experienced it. So listen.
Yeah, and that's what I did. But of course, you know, back then, no one had any idea. You know, this is the '60s. No one had any idea that this kind of it just wasn't as prevalent in society. You know, people just didn't talk about this kind of thing happening. So my mom was the same thing. It would have been the last thing that ever entered her mind that, you know, her child was being taken by gray aliens. You know, so. But what happened is I think that they actually knew that it affected me like that, and all my memories from that point on were suppressed. So I went my whole childhood, teen years, Now, I had all the signs, you know, and I talk about them in the book. I mean, the nosebleeds, you know, chronic nosebleeds, and all the extreme interest. You know, I was looking up at the sky and, you know, thinking about that kind of thing. And that's what got me into research into paranormal, because what happened to me, and I found this a lot, time and time again, that once somebody has had these experiences, paranormal activity increases around them. And some people, if you're a repeated experiencer like myself, it becomes really intense. And I have a theory about that. We can talk about it later. But and that's what started happening to me. So
It's probably the same theory I have.
all the oh, go ahead. You want to talk
The
about
vortex, I believe once that vortex is open and the ETs are coming in, now you can have all kinds of interdimensional and ghost activity at the same time. It happens to probably 95% of the people also have paranormal, have orbs, have different things like that. I bet you had it.
Yeah, I had like extreme hauntings. You know, I mean, like apparitions in my room, stuff getting in bed with me, constant. And I actually came back clairaudient, which I still am today. You know, so I'm hearing people contacting me. And of course, that's another thing. You know, you start telling people you're hearing voices. Well, you know, you're schizo, and they've got medicine for that. You know, so it's just a shame that that it's gotten a lot better, but you know, there's still a long ways to go with this stuff. But so you what happened to me is I quit telling anybody,
Sure. Yeah.
and I realized, like, no one's listening to me. I'm having all this contact from the spirit world. They're coming to me for some reason. I have no idea. I was scared out of my mind all the time because it was so frequent, and there was nobody to talk to, because you know, I would tell my parents, and they were just like, okay, that's great, you know, now go to bed. You know, it was really one of those kind of things. And because there was times I was like seeing like full body apparitions, and just not even knowing what to do with it, you know. And that was what got me into research in the paranormal. I was like, well, I got to get answers on my own. You know, I'm 11, 12, 13 years old. Nobody's giving me any answers here. I got to stop this stuff. I wanted it to stop. You know, I wasn't enjoying it.
No, the ghost activities.
No.
I've had that too. It's not.
But and so that I spent a lot of time like learning how to protect myself, and
How was that? How did you protect yourself?
well, I was going through. I actually was at a yard sale one time. I think it was just meant to be, and I found the circle protection amulet in a basket, of all things, you know. And I was like, I pulled this out, and I was like, wow, what is this? It looks like something I'd seen in one of the books at the library, and it was kind of tarnished a little bit. And so I went up to the guy, and I was like, I'd like to buy this, because there was no price. It was literally at the bottom of a laundry basket full of junk. You know, so it was meant to be that I found it. And he's like, what do you want that for? He goes, do you know what that is? And I'm like, actually, I do. You know, and I said, I just need it. And so he gave it to me, you know, and I put it at the end on my bedpost. And then I started learning to protection prayers, and I started learning to use energy to protect myself. And I got really good at it, and it helped. It helped a lot, you know, and I still use that to this day.
I do too.
So,
I know what you mean.
but so it wasn't until my 20s, and I was here in Las Vegas, and I've had a lot of experiences in this city.
Las Vegas is a hot spot. Has been
Yeah,
a long time.
I agree.
I've been here since 86 or something like that, and yeah, my contact has been going on. Yeah.
And I started having anxiety attacks. So at the time, when I was younger, I was in sports, and you know, I was always a good athlete in all the sports, and so I'd been in front of people in sports, and I was also a musician. At that time, I was actually a professional musician and playing a lot of shows all the time, and not the kind of person that's prone to anxiety attacks. And it got crippling. You know, I know in one of your in the support group the other day, one of the women had talked about having to try to deal with that, and
Yeah.
I could totally relate. You know, I sort of got agoraphobia as well. It got that crippling, and you know, I'm sort of like a fighter personality. I don't like, you know, I'm not going to just lay down and let something beat me easily, you know. So I knew I had to get to the bottom of it because it was just stifling, and I sought out therapy. And the first therapist, nothing worked. You know, he just didn't work, and I found another guy over on Maryland Parkway, across from Sunrise Hospital, and we hit it off. You know, personality-wise, he was interested in reincarnation, which at that point I was all about that. And you know, this is another thing that happens with the experiences. A lot of people's religious views change.
They do.
So I'll just kind of leave that at there because I don't want to upset anybody. But
You definitely believe in reincarnation after having those experiences.
and he started teaching me relaxation techniques. I've never been officially regressed for the abductions. I was just trying to stop the anxiety attacks because once again, I still didn't remember. You know, I'd had a lot of weird physical anomalies that had happened, like I'd get sports physicals, and you know, I was doing eye tests that I was not supposed to. I was above average eyesight. You know, here I am wearing glasses now, but at that time, and hearing, you know, all this weird physical stuff, and I had scars showing up on my body.
Right.
That no doctor could explain, can't explain to this day.
Probably rashes and things like that.
I had rashes.
Yeah,
I had rashes that the dermatologist had no idea what it was, couldn't even give me anything for it. I've had it 3 different times in my groin area. I've got a large scar across the bottom of my back that happened between my 13th and 14th year after I got mysteriously ill with some kind of unknown sickness that was just wiping me out. And I've been very healthy, as we talked about earlier, and still am. And Brad Steiger told me that it's a very common thing for abductees at that age to get some kind of mysterious illness.
Exactly.
And what happened with me, I had a dream. I mean, I got to the point I got so weak that I couldn't get up the stairs, and they were going to hospitalize me.
Immune deficiency kind of disease.
It was something like that.
People get, yeah.
And it just came out of nowhere. I had no idea what it was. You know, like I said, I've been like, other than sinus infections, I'm never sick, like
Right.
never. And so I had this dream of, and I see the grays in my dream at this point in time, and they tell me it's going to be okay. You know, this is one of the things where they actually helped me.
Helped you. Okay.
And I remember like waking up and remembering the dream, but at the time I didn't know I was having these continual experiences. I just thought, well, that was a weird dream, you know. And I started getting better.
Sure.
But my mom, that was after that, I was standing at the kitchen sink getting a drink of water with my shirt off, and my mom's like, what happened to your back? And I had no idea what she was talking about. She goes, there's this large red mark across your back.
Sideways.
Yeah.
Seen it before on other people.
Oh, you have?
Yes,
Oh.
I have. I've got a picture of it in my book. Yeah.
I put pictures of the scars in the book too. So, and that was the first one. I've since got a couple more, not as big, but higher up on my back. And then I've got a large scoop mark under my rib cage on this side over here, and a puncture mark. And you know, so I had all these scars that I had no idea. The doctors would say, when did you have surgery? You know, stuff like that. I'm like, oh, I never had back surgery. You know, I don't know what you're talking about. You know, and to them it looked like surgical scars. So I knew all this in the back of my mind, but I still never thought that it was from these experiences. So the therapy, what happened is I started getting better after learning these relaxation techniques, and I started getting heavy into meditation. And I think with me, it just, and maybe this happens with other people as well, it just reached that point where you can't, like you just can't take it anymore. Like it's in your subconscious, you know, and it starts coming out physically. And a matter of fact, I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to, this is hopefully helpful to people because there's something now called post-abduction syndrome, PAS. It has a lot of the same symptoms as post-traumatic stress syndrome. And if you're out there and you're experiencing any of these type of things, and you may be an abductee and not even know it. This could be because a lot of people get into addictions, and it even happened to me at one time. I started drinking real heavy because you just sort of an escape thing. It's an escape thing. But and some of these I can't have these memorized, so forgive me if I'm going to read them off. But some of the characteristics, and I had most of the ones that I'm reading off here, but it's a persistent re-experiencing of a traumatic event characterized by flashbacks. That's what started happening to me when I began the therapy. I started having these flashbacks of these events, conscious memories of them. Persistence avoidance of stimuli associated with the trauma. I would never read a book, actually to this day, I've never read a book about alien abduction. Can't do it.
I have a real hard time.
Denial of the event. Once these memories started surfacing, and I realized, because it opened up a floodgate with me after I got through the therapy, I did not want to accept it, that this happened to me. And I just kept having more conscious memories, more dreams. Stuff would come to me in meditation. It was just releasing through the subconscious mind more and more. And I did not want to accept it. It's a hard thing to accept, to know that you've been subjected to these type of things your entire life is a harsh thing to deal with. So that's one of the characteristics, and then labeling the event blackout or being lost or type of thing, like
missing time, yes.
refraining from sleep at the time contact occurred. I still have a problem with that. I'm sure many people out there that's experiencers, because you never know, like, are they coming tonight?
That's right.
Now months could go by before anything happened, but you don't know exactly when something's going to happen. So there's many times that we lay there in bed, like we don't want to go to sleep because of that. And things could happen in the daytime as well, but it's just easier for them at night, I think.
Fred, have you found out also that your closet door must be shut and your blinds must be shut, and most everybody has to have their back against the wall. They've got to be able to face that door.
Yeah, that's all true. That's all true. Yeah. And one of the other things I already mentioned was the emotional reaction to literature, pictures, video, that type of thing like that, So all these type of things, and then the anxiety symptoms, the sleep disturbances, anxiety symptoms. I won't go into all of them, but, you get the picture. And they surface in this type of way. I just think it's your body's physical reaction to what's happened to you. And I think that it's very important for people, if anyone's out there listening that may have some inkling that they've had something happen to them and are experiencing any kinds of these symptoms that I just talked about, then, if you don't feel comfortable going to therapy, and you may eventually get to that point, but talk to somebody about it. There's people out there, just like the groups that Miesha has, Kathleen has, support groups, there's Starborn support, there's other people out there, there's more and more support groups starting. It's really important that you talk to somebody, and if you don't even feel comfortable in a support group, tell your best friend, tell a relative or somebody, but it's just really important that you release it. If you suffer, I call it suffering in silence. That happened to me, like I said, for 20 some years, and writing this book is one of the best things I ever did for myself psychologically, because it took such a weight off my shoulders. Like, I got to the point where I was like, okay, if you think that I'm crazy, so be it. But I'm pretty sure my reputation as a human being and the people that know me knew, like, if I'm making this stuff up, then Spielberg needs to give me a job, So, you just can't make this stuff up, And luckily for me, most of my family, you know, some people are bothered by it because sort of the religious connotations associated with it, you know, like the whole we're not really the supreme thing we think we are type deal.
Oh, yeah.
but but generally, you know, I really have appreciated the support, and you know, there's still there's going to be that element always out there that doesn't want this kind of stuff coming out. That's gonna try to slam you and say derogatory things, but there's strength in numbers, you know, and the more people that come out with their stories, and the more shows that are out there like what you're doing with this, it just helps everything and awaken everybody to the reality of what's really going on with this.
That's absolutely true. That's right. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the anxiety ones that you have down there on your list?
Well, I pretty much read through all of them, but
You said that you had some more about anxiety?
well, the anxiety is one of the main symptoms of this. You know, the irritability, panic attacks, exaggerated startle response, hypervigilance. So, you know, there's really a lot to it that the psychological part of it is I don't think it's addressed enough. You know, I think people just get more of like a curiosity, like, oh wow, you know, you met an alien type thing, and it's just and there's people out there that have had positive experiences. You know, Nordics, I know a lot of people that talk about, you know, different people talk about light beings and things like that. And man, God bless them. That's great. I mean, I wish that would have happened to me, you know, but instead of this.
Well, you know, Brett, you might find out if you have some regression that remember how you were healed from some kind of a odd disease? You know, you might find out that there's different types of ETs that have had contact because it's like they have our number, they have their, you know, the genetics, they have our genetics. So there's different types. I've had like 5 different types of beings. Some of them were not. Most of them were positive. There were some that were not. But you might even find that there's some positive strains throughout that story of your experiences with them, especially the medical. There is a gentleman that has written a book that's called Healing. Let's see, Healing Great. Let's see, something about healing. Aliens healing or something like that. So, I mean, I found that out in the research. So, you know, maybe for yourself you'll find out. But you go ahead and go on. You know, I've had all kinds of people commenting here on the chat room, and of course I have a moderator, Bridget, moderating for me, so that they're going to be writing down their questions and then asking you because we don't want to. You know,
Well, one of the things that I'll tell you about my theory on on why the paranormal, and I agree in the dimensional aspect of it. I didn't know for a long time how they were taking me. I would see them sometimes, you know, in the house or on this, I call it this plane. But it was always like blackout, wake up, and there I am. You know, most of the time, like I call it the intake room. You know, like the first place. You know, where the little guys are doing their thing, and it always bothered me. I would hear these stories. You know, somebody saying, "Oh, I was floated through a wall," that type of thing, and I was thinking, you know, understanding metaphysics and stuff, and that there is nothing solid. You know, everything's either fast or slow-moving molecules. Right. I just never, and I think it's one of the positive things that they did do for me is they showed me. They actually showed me how they do it one night, and it was recent. It was I think like 3 years ago now, if I can remember the date right. But I was still in Tennessee. We were living actually on the Trail of Tears, having it was a new place we lived in, but it was ghost activity like off the charts. Which is pretty common for me actually.
They follow you around.
They follow me around. They're not trying to scare. At this point, they're seeking help.
Exactly.
That's right. And that's what I try to do. I have no fear of them anymore whatsoever. And they know I can hear them and see them a lot of times, and they really come for help. And we had just had a lot of experiences in that place, and I heard it was just, the sun was just coming up, and so there was a little bit of ambient light from the sun coming through the room, and I hear like this tap 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 sound on my side of the bed. And I'm a really light sleeper because, once again, you know, the sleep disturbances, you know, it's the slightest thing wakes me up. And so I thought it was a spirit coming to get my attention again, because it's happened quite a few times. And so I kept my eyes closed, and just to see what was going to happen next. And I was laying facing the wall, and I hear this tat 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 again. And I could feel it on the side of the mattress. You know, something was tapping on the mattress itself, trying to get my attention to wake me up. So in my mind, I wasn't thinking grays. You know, I'm thinking I'm going to open my eyes, and if I'm lucky, I know it sounds funny saying lucky, but to me, you know, I like to see who I'm communicating with, that their apparition will be standing there, and I will just see what they want. And when I opened my eyes, I got quite a shock, because it wasn't spirit. It was 3 grays standing down the side of my bed. And I instantly tried to scream. I couldn't. I certainly wasn't experiencing sleep paralysis, for anybody out there who wants to say that. But and I wanted to wake Gina up to tell her to run. Which is silly, you know, because you can't stop these things. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
And you can't wake her up because they've already put her out.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But it's your survival instinct that kicks in, you know. And I knew it wasn't for me, and I'm sure you feel the same way. You don't want this. I don't want this happening. What's happened to me to happen to anybody else, especially a family member. I don't want anybody have to go through the experiments and the mental anguish things that they did. So, you know, you want to protect them. Well, that was the first thing I tried to yell for her to wake her up, and I couldn't get anything to come out, and I knew they were suppressing me, and I got upset by it, you know, and I was so mad at him, and I started pleading with him. I was like, okay, take me, don't take her, just leave her alone, please, please, don't take her, just take me. And that's all I kept trying to say to him in my head. I was trying to verbalize it, but I couldn't. And as I did, I looked at the bed. I was facing the bedroom wall, and I could see that the bedroom wall was no longer there, and it was an oval-shaped portal had opened up. Right. It looked almost what I would describe like a water mirage looking type thing. It had a white, I don't even know what kind of material, but it was a whitish mist looking type stuff all around. It encompassed the whole bedroom wall. It was rather large, and through that I could see inside a craft, and I could see another gray inside the craft.
Oh yeah, wow.
So as quickly as I tried to say the word no, scream the word no, you know, I was going like this to scream it. Nothing was coming out, and this quick, I was in the craft, and it came out, the rest of the word.
Oh.
I mean, it was instantaneous. I was bedroom, in the craft, instantaneous. And I think the time before, just trying to pronounce one simple, one-syllable word.
Wow.
I don't know if they took her. At that time, I didn't see her. That's all I remember from the event, and I think that's all they wanted me to remember, because looking back after it was over with, I realized, like, they showed me how they do it. I think what they're doing, they're able to manipulate dimensional portals. They're coming in, and when people say they're going through a wall, well, literally, that's what I did, in essence, you know. I mean,
yeah, right straight your bedroom.
it was just, but they've opened up, they're opening up these portals, they're able to manipulate that, and come in completely undetected. It's definitely dimensional. And I think what happens to us, when we're taken back and forth through these dimensional portals, it changes the energy in our bodies. And from my research, I really believe that the spirit world's vibrating at a faster rate than we are. You know, we do a lot of EVP work because I have, because of these experiences, I'm not special or nothing, I don't want to come off like that, but it's only because I've had these experiences, it's changed the energy in my body. And you know, I went to get my first Reiki attunement, and he's like, "You sure you never had this done before?" He goes, "It's like blowing out of your body like crazy." You know, he could feel it himself. I didn't tell him, you know, where I think it came from, but I think what happens is I think we start vibrating at a faster rate than people that's just experiencing this plane alone, and the spirit world's drawn to us because our frequency is closer to them, and they sense that, they know that. Many of us come back with, you know, I know a couple mediums right now, very good, legit mediums that's had this experiencers, and they came back with this gift. You know, I came back being able to hear them, and I think we just become a beacon.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, we just become a beacon, and so they're not coming to us to try to scare us like they did. I thought that as a kid. Yeah, they're why won't they leave me alone? Well, I understand now why they won't leave me alone, because there is a lot of lost souls out there wondering and needing help, and so that's one of the positive things I've taken out of this experience, knowing this stuff, you know, and knowing that I can use this energy to not only like help people in this plane, but and the other side as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I think it as so as below, so above. So I mean, if they were an all right person and they passed away and they're stuck someplace or they need help and they do come to us, I've had interactions as well, probably, and I did not even realize at the time why. But I was having the same kind of thing with ghosts and stuff like that. But at the time, I didn't realize, and I was in a different situation where I felt that I was I won't say, I was very, very religious at the time, and so I thought I was being attacked by demons. Yeah, you know, because we do.
Demons get a lot of credit for stuff, don't they?
Yeah, they do get a lot of credit. Right. So yeah, I know what you mean. So we're going to be taking a break here, but boy, I'll tell you we're hitting a lot of buttons. You're hitting a lot of buttons with people. The little bit I have been reading, people are saying, "Oh yeah, I sleep by the wall." They're talking about, you know, believing in reincarnation, and there's just so much. I know there's going to be some good questions. However, we need to go into the book, which is Children of the Greys. So we need to know all about why you call it Children of the Greys after we come back from break. And you know, if you got about a minute or so, any thing you want to say before we go on break?
Well, I'm glad you asked about, and I'm glad we're going to go into that, because that was one of the main reasons. The little girl, the hybrid child, she's made quite an impact on people. And once again, you know, my brother Jeffrey did an outstanding job duplicating the person that I experienced, and so I'm really glad to talk about that. That's why there's a reason she's on the cover.
Yeah, I can.
You know, so.
It just blew me away when I saw her, because she looked exactly like a little girl that I was shown too. Yeah. She has the very sparse blonde hair, and big blue eyes, and tiny little nose, you know. So I know it's amazing. So I guess we are going to go to break now, and I'm looking forward to touching on the rest of your story when we come back. Welcome back to Starseed Awakening with my guest, Bret Oldham. And he's going to continue on with his story, but I want to have everyone know who is local here that he's going to be speaking for MUFON on the 16th. That is Wednesday, the 16th, at the Macmillan Irish Pub and that's 4650 West Tropicana here in Las Vegas, Nevada. So you will need to go on MUFON, probably the meetup MUFON here locally, and RSVP, because I know that the space is limited. So then also just quickly I want to tell you that please do come to our experiencer groups here in Las Vegas. They are the first and the third Friday of every month. And then of course I have the inner... Oops, could you hear any of it? Just in case you couldn't hear, we're going to tell you again about the MUFON meeting where Bret Oldham is going to be speaking and sharing his entire story with pictures and everything like that. So you'll definitely want to come. That is at Macmillan Irish Pub, 4650 West Tropicana here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And it starts, I believe, at like 6:30, 7 o'clock. So you want to double check that. But you will need to RSVP at the Las Vegas MUFON meetup site to let people know you're coming, because the space is limited. So come to our experiencer group at my home on the first and the third Friday of every month. Come to the internet groups. Come through Facebook, Starseed Awakening, and you can join our experiencer groups. So there's no reason to be alone if you're having these experiences and you need other people to talk to. Even if you've already come through the fear and you're working well on everything, it's always a great place to chit-chat with people, because you learn so much from these experiencer groups. I mean, I'm learning some things right here today talking to Bret. And so we will be having our Super Soldier Summit on the May 30th, from May 30th through June 2nd. And I'll be having an experiencer group there on Saturday and Sunday morning. And then we will also have another conference coming into town, the For Real conference, which is a really exciting one. And you're going to love this. It is a combination of the ET contact experience and the ghost and the paranormal. Yeah, so that that's going to be coming up in July 28th, I think, through the 30th. So now we're just going to go on with Bret's story, and he's going to go on through to tell us why he has the picture of the beautiful little child on the front of his book.
Thank you, Miesha. Yeah, one of the most profound experiences that I had involves the little girl that's on the front cover of the book. In the late '80s, I was living here in Las Vegas, and my girlfriend at the time got pregnant, and she was having a normal pregnancy. It was about a week shy of her 4th month, and she had just been in about a week before that for a checkup. Everything was going fine, and one night we hear a loud bang in the bedroom. Woke us both up, and when we woke up, we saw a room full of grays. I remember 5, she remembers 4, but there was one standing back by the master bath that would have been blocked from her view. So, and they immediately took us. They put us in the same room, and she was on a table that's to my right. I'd never experienced like so many at one time, and they were surrounding all around my left side, and she was to my right, and they had left an opening where I could had a clear view of seeing her. And there was a wall with some equipment on the other side of her, but they had her in a position just like you getting ready to deliver. And she was screaming. I think she obviously knew what was going on, and she was screaming, "It's my baby, please don't take it, stop," all that kind of stuff. And I realized then what was happening as well, and I wasn't gonna play into it, and I turned my head back because I didn't want to watch it because I realized that they purposely had left this clear view for me. And one at the top of the, they're more like platforms, you know, that were placed on, I call them tables, you know, they're not really beds, you know, but,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
and he put his hand over my head and turned it back
So you wouldn't be watching?
so I
Oh,
would be
would
watching because I had turned away.
Oh, I see.
And try as I might, I couldn't move it after that.
They wanted your reaction.
They wanted my emotional reaction because that's just what the whole Grays is all about, emotional makeup of us and human sexuality. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. And they took it, you know, they took it. And I was just so upset and so angry. And I was threatening them. I was cussing at them, you know, I was telling them I would have killed them all if I could have.
Right.
And that was all I remember of that. I woke up the next morning, bright sunlight's coming in, everything's fine, and she says, "Oh, there's some blood on the bed," and I was like, "Uh-oh, what's causing that?" You know, and she goes to the restroom and she calls out. She goes, "You better call my doctor." She goes, "I'm bleeding."
She knew she was pregnant.
Oh yeah.
How long did she?
It was 1 week shy of the fourth month.
Oh,
She'd already been having checkups and everything like that. And her doctor, there used to be Women's Hospital in East Sahara, and he was real near that, his office, and right across from that actually. And we went up there, and he's like, "Yeah, I think you've had a miscarriage." And she goes, "No, that's impossible. There's no tissue that came out. It was just blood.
Yes.
There's nothing." And he says, "Well, you know, I'm going to have to do a D&C, you know, it's basically where they go in and scrape the womb and stuff." And we went right across the street to Women's Hospital. And I remember my mom had came down and she had called her mom and they both came down there and we were in the waiting area. And I remember like looking down the hallway and seeing the doctor coming toward us, and I got up to meet him and he had a funny look on his face and I said, "Is everything okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, you know, it's, I don't remember his verbatim, his exact words, but it was like, you know, the damnedest thing I've ever seen." I was like, "What happened? What's wrong?" And he goes, "No, she's fine." He goes, "But I went in there to scrape the womb and it was already cleaned. It was like if I hadn't just seen this woman last week, I would have thought she was never been pregnant." So he was just totally perplexed by the whole thing. And my mom was standing there by me. And they had let us remember it. I remembered all of it, and on purpose, I'm sure. And I looked at her, and I just said, "They took it."
Yeah.
And I don't even know if she knew what I was talking about, but I was so shell-shocked by the whole event. And when they released her out of the hospital and stuff, you know, it was just sort of like this silent ride home. I didn't have it. We didn't. It was one of those things like I didn't know if she remembered it, the same thing. But anyway, eventually, you know, we talked about it and we just told each other like nobody's ever going to believe this, you know. Let's just keep quiet about it. And that's what we did. And oddly enough, I hadn't spoken to her in years and years and years. And we did a show for Destination America, and actually she's now been on Ancient Aliens with me as well, and about this same thing. But all these years later, and you have these two people that remember exactly the same thing, both in the bedroom and what happened on the craft. And you know,
This
so
is your first wife.
she still remembers remembers everything as well, you know. So and about 2 to 3 years after that, I had an experience, and I was escorted by two small grays into an area that I was not familiar with, and it was very dark, which is usually not the case. And there was just some small ambient lighting from these small little lights, and it was they led me to the edge of this ramp, and it was about 60 to 75 feet down this sloping ramp, which in my experience is most of their craft is ramps and not stairs. And at the bottom there was an opening where there was a very bright light, but the light was not filtering into the room that I was in. They had the ability to control light. as crazy as that sounds.
They do.
They can control light. And so the two smaller ones, telepathically just told me to stand there. I was a little nervous. I didn't know what this was all about. I've never been left in a room that size alone. I didn't know what was going on. And through the light, I see a figure break through the light. And as the figure did, the light filtered into the room that I was in, and caught my attention because I kept thinking to myself, how does that happen? Like they walk through the light and the light starts filtering in. But she starts walking up the ramp. I could see that it was a female. It was a female hybrid, and she was carrying a child. She gets close to me. She sets the child down and starts telling me that it's my child. And I'm like, no, I don't believe you. And she wanted me to interact with the child, which I kept refusing to do. And then I just, she was standing, the little girl was standing like right in front of me, and I just like looked at her, and she just had this look I can't even really describe, that just drew me in, and she really wasn't making any kind of expression per se, but it was just, it was something in her eyes, the way she was, just the expression that she was looking at me. And I'm like a big animal lover, and I like little kids, so I got a soft heart for the both, and she looked unusual, but she didn't look like hideous or anything, it was just unusual. And so I just knelt down and I started talking to her just like I would a child here of that age. And she seemed to enjoy it, and I didn't get any communication from her. She seemed as curious about me as I was about her, but I really started to enjoy it myself. I started to feel a sort of a bond, and I really started kind of wondering, like, man, maybe they were telling me the truth for a change, because they do a lot of mind stuff that you never know for sure what the whole motive is and what the agenda is all about with that. And I kind of didn't want to fall into that again, but I couldn't help it. So I was really, in just a matter of 7 to 10 minutes, it wasn't very long of an ordeal, but I was really starting to feel this like connection with this small child. So part of me started wondering, like, was it? I mean, they extracted sperm from me countless times. The fetus, I don't know. I have no idea if that's the same, if that had anything to do with it. I don't know. There's no way to know. But it seemed as soon as I did what they wanted, basically, that the taller female hybrid, the adult female hybrid, picked her up and took her away.
As soon as you accepted,
Yeah.
you realized that
Yeah.
this could be my child. Yeah.
And I was like, wait, I didn't want him to leave at that point. It was like sort of was having the opposite feelings, and so I never got her name. I've never seen her again that I remember anyway, and I've always, it's one of the things that's always bothered me after all these years. And we're talking, this is 91, when this happened. It's been a long time, and I've always wondered, like, what happened to her? Was she really mine, or partially, from my DNA? And where is she now? What's she doing? That kind of stuff. And I've always hoped that I would see her again. I mean, now she would be an adult, but I never have, and I always knew that if I ever did come out with my story and write a book, that it was going to be she was going to be on the cover. And that's where I got Children of the Greys. I mean, I knew that I would always call it that, and that she would be on the cover for a very long time, because it's sort of in a way like, dedicated to her, because they're definitely creating this hybrid species. There's just no doubt about it. And I think that's one of the reasons that they're so interested in the emotional makeup of us, because like we talked about the other day online, I think that they don't understand these hybrids because they have these human qualities, that the Greys, and it's well known. I mean, you know, they are emotionless. You know,
Exactly.
and so it's one of the things. Maybe at one time they weren't like that, but their bodies seem to be in such atrophy. They're attracted to us as a human, as a species for our human bodies. You know, we have strong bodies, and you know, they obviously have mental capabilities that are way beyond anything that that we have. But you can make quite a new species between the two. You know,
Yes.
so. And I really think that there's a high possibility that there are hybrids walking among us right now.
Oh,
I think that
absolutely.
they're integrated into society because really that little girl could probably pass without being really that noticed. You know, her eyes were unusual. Her head was a little shaped unusual. Her hair was a little whiter than it's on the cover of the book, and a little thinner. But you know, we had to deal with backgrounds and stuff like that. You know, so Jeff did still a great job. You know, it's very close to a depiction of what I saw.
I think she's beautiful myself.
Yeah, I mean, she's caused quite a reaction. A lot of people have said that they've been drawn to her. I asked Jeff. He has his name's Jeffrey Oldham. He has a website. You know, I asked him. I was like, "Look, can you actually put that print, not with the graphics of the book, you know, the titles, just the depiction of her for sale?" Because people told me they've used her as a screensaver and things like that because they felt so drawn to her, and I believe he's done that. I believe he's made it available where you can buy different size prints and stuff.
On your website?
Not mine, but his.
Oh, okay.
I think I have a link on I have a website. It's Children of the Greys, and it's Greys with an E, by the way, .com. I think I do have a link to
Well,
his work.
okay.
Yeah, if anybody is interested in that. But
You
so.
can also get the book there?
There's a link. It's available in like the bookstore, like Barnes and Noble, stuff like that. But it's also I have Kindle version on Amazon and also a print version on Amazon as well. So that's you know, that's where the whole for me was the beginning of the experiences with the hybrid child anyway. And I've had other experiences with the hybrids with their hybrids. You know, but I do think that the hybrids are evolving. You know, and looks wise, you know, because there was one time that they were forcing me to have sex with one of their female hybrids, and she still had more of an alien quality, not as much as the Greys, but she didn't look as human as the hybrid child.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it seems that they're evolving more and more, and I don't know if it's just if it's something they're doing on purpose.
Yeah, I think so. I think they realized that if they wanted to come on this planet, the only way they were going to be able to was a lesser genetics of the alien and more of the human. So yeah, that's what everybody says. I mean, I've showed several of my hybrid children, and at one time I was taken into a room where there were so many of kids, and I said, "Which one's mine?" And they said they all are, and there was teenagers that they had bigger heads. They had darker colored skin, like a more of a ashy gray, and then these littler ones were quite beautiful. And then I also had reptilian, but that's a whole nother story. So there were some people I know have questions, but how about talking to them about in your book you say zombie humans?
Well, I've witnessed both like you know, MLab type situation where a woman that I had met was put in that state, and also I've witnessed in some of the in the sexual experiments other humans, which I perceived them to be humans, put in what I call like a zombie-like state. It's like they're awake, they're walking, but they're just like blanked out. You know, and I've often wondered like how many times that I've been in that state myself. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, but the lady in particular, I was doing a lecture. We do a lot of electronic voice phenomenon. Gina and I do. You know, I just naturally pick up stuff, enormous amount. And I was a group in Tennessee, and we were speaking one night and playing some of our stuff, and it was a paranormal ghost meetup type thing, and there was about 30 people there, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but you can sense other people that's had experiences.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, like
Yes,
when you're around them,
yes.
like you
You
know.
know. Uh-huh.
And so I was actually at the front of the room, and not really looking at anybody in particular, but I just felt drawn. This lady was in the far back corner, and I remember like kind of thinking, you know, she's an experiencer, you know.
Right.
And my friend was with us that night, Sandy Nichols, one of the guys that's in the book, and afterwards, there was a lot of people started talking to us and asking us questions and stuff after, which is pretty normal after these things. And I wanted to go say something to her, and she left because there was just so many, you know, people were talking to me and Gina, and so I asked my friend Sandy. There was a lady back there, dark hair, da da da, and he says, yeah, I actually know her, and he goes, well, I'll introduce you sometime. Well, we had a gathering at his house, and we ended up meeting her, and I was right. You know, she had a lifetime of MLab experience.
Of my lab?
Yeah, my lab. I would call them MLab, but my lab.
Well, no, you're right. It is.
But and so we got to know her pretty good. We actually are now like I've been friends with her for a few years. So she's still a little reluctant to talk about her dad. Had a military background, and she thinks that he might have actually volunteered her to be a part of it. You know, which is kind of hard to deal with, I guess, on that.
It's kind of a forced volunteer.
Well,
that's what I've heard.
Yeah,
that's what in my research. That's what I found out, that they have something on him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and one of my experiences, I don't think I was actually taken to either, and I'm going to say ultra-terrestrial or extraterrestrial, because I really can't say if these things are from outer space or interdimensional.
Okay.
Either one, to me, it's still, yeah, you know, 6 of one, half a dozen the other. But I recognize the differences, and so I don't like to talk about all the differences because I like people, when I'm talking to people, if they happen to say something, like there's little nuances that that only people that's been on these crafts know.
That's
you know,
right.
and so a lot of times I don't talk about them, but until if I hear somebody say something, then I will like, wow, you know, same type, and if it's the same type of dealing with the grace. But I knew that I wasn't on a craft, and I seemed to be almost, to me, it was a warehouse type thing. And the furniture that was in there was just like what you would see in a doctor's office, with these ceramic countertops and drawers, you know. And there was, I was on a table, naked, and just to my left there was just like what you would, small little counter thing with drawers, like you see in a doctor's office. Another one a little further down in front of me. There was somebody on the right side. I couldn't tell man or woman, living or dead. But nobody was doing, I was just alone. Nobody seemed to care anything about me. And I noticed to my left there was a doorway, and I noticed the light filtering in as well. And it was actually pretty dark in the room, just like as needed light. That's what I would call it, you know, just the light that they needed for whatever they were doing to that poor person they were doing it to next to me. And I heard somebody coming down, entering the room, and I looked over, and it was two, what I perceived as humans, although oddly enough, they almost looked like clones. I mean, they looked very, very similar to each other. They were men, average height, short, dark hair, dark uniforms, tight, you know, tight-fitting uniforms.
What color?
Black.
Oh yeah.
And they were one on each side of this woman, and as they got closer, I realized it was the woman that I had previously met. I've never revealed her identity. I want to be discreet about that, but And you know, she was naked as well, and they walked up very close to that. They were standing by that counter, and I started speaking to her, and she was in this zombie-like state that you just mentioned, and she was just staring out over the room, completely didn't seem aware of surroundings, me, or anything. And you know, I kept trying to get her attention, and I noticed that she seemed to be tagged. Like there was around this area, I don't know if you can see this on camera or not, but around this area of her body, there was like a black thing stuck to her, you know.
Okay.
And I always, it was like maybe some kind of identification tag or some kind of, I don't know what it was. And it was one of the times where I had recognized somebody in that state, and I don't know, I don't remember really anything besides that. The guys spoke to me, and they spoke to me out loud, so they weren't speaking telepathically, and they were pretty rude. You know, they told me to shut up.
That's exactly how we are.
Quit talking to her. So I think that they knew that we knew each other, you know. So, but we lived the same city, you know. It wouldn't be real difficult. But I've also seen you know, that same zombie-like state when there's been no humans around, when it's just been strictly the grays.
In the ship.
In the ship.
Like a ship.
In the ship. Yeah, and that was I was once. It sounds like a bad movie, but it was an area that was dome shaped. I'm actually going to bring in to my lecture Wednesday a 3D model of it that a guy did for me. And I got, it's hard to talk about it because it was a large, what I'll just call it a sexual experiment. And I was up a ramp, and to my left it was a room full of guys in a zombie-like state. Right. They were all nude. They seemed to have no idea that anybody else was in the room with them. As I was being led up by the small grays, you know, I just glanced over and stopped for a second. And then a little ways up the ramp from them, there was a room full of women. Exactly. In the exact same state. There was a small like bench thing that was actually built into the craft itself, which I find all the time.
That they were sitting on.
Some of them were sitting, some of them were standing. It was like a crowded subway car, and it was, you know, a room full of naked people, completely unaware of each other. Right. But that was the other time where, you know, what the whole story is. I mean, there was all these mat area kind of things, these small, maybe this high, coming out of the floor with this same blue material I'd seen before. They were placed in, like, as part, you know, like very same distance apart, everything very orderly, on the floor. And it was this dome-shaped room where there was this ramp kind of up the side, and at the front of the room there was a couple, 2 or 3 tall grays. They were sitting in these really wide chairs that were also built into the room, with several small grays standing in the back of them, and they were basically pairing people up and observing the sexual act. Yeah. And then sometimes they would move somebody else to somebody else. Now, whether they were having people being impregnated at that time or just observing the actual act, I don't think they were doing it, you know, as for some kind of sexual thrill. You know, it was nothing like that whatsoever.
They lack emotion. So
yeah, it was some kind of
there was a purpose.
Purpose done to it, you know. But many of the participants and just seemed to be in that state, you know, and so it's something that it's scary because you wonder yourself, like, how many times, like have I been in that state, and what happened?
Right. You know, I'm just going to tell you a really quick story. During my support group that I had in the 90s, that was here in Las Vegas, started, one night I had a dream very, very similar to that. It was a very oval room. There was a lot of naked people. Um, I woke up and didn't like where I was. And in fact, evidently, I did something that was surprising. Right at the very same moment I woke up, startled, a woman from my group woke up and she said, and she called me and she said, I just had the craziest experience. I was like, it was really an orgy, but there was a lot of naked people there, and yeah, there was something to it. And I said, yes, I know. And I mentioned to her, and I says, and I got you out of there, and because I woke you up. I don't know how I woke her up, but the moment we both woke up, we were back in our beds, and that's when we called each other. So that was a very strange
Very
moment like
interesting,
that.
yeah.
So I've never heard anybody talk about that before.
Well,
She called it
unfortunately,
a fun orgy, and I said, no, I didn't like it at all.
yeah, this was the thing that they made me do was, and I tell people that people don't want to talk about the sexual aspects of this
No, but
because it's embarrassing to
it is
them.
embarrassing.
But the thing is, it's like no one's doing this under their own free will,
Oh,
you know,
no.
and people need to be aware that this is the kind of stuff that's going on.
Right.
And you know, it is somewhat embarrassing, but it's not like people are like volunteering, you know, to go, dude. It's
right.
it's not a thing like that whatsoever. So
Not at all. No, even her, she was joking, and she
yeah,
was like laughing about it. But I had more of a memory of what was really going on in her dream. It was the dream. It was the implant that they put in of the memory that's going on. So you think you're actually having, maybe you're making love to somebody important or somebody you care about,
right.
but and that's the only kind of a memory you get when you come back. And I believe in so many cases it's some of this same programming that's going on. These same, I was in a room where they piled all their clothes in the middle. They and we had to go get them after the whole thing was over. I don't even know how anybody got them because I don't remember much of it. But anyway.
Well, they actually informed me years ago to quit sleeping in any kind of clothing.
Oh, is that yeah? Made it easier for them.
Make it easier.
No, I will not. So, I want to make sure that you get more. Is there something else you want to talk about before we answer any questions?
We can take some questions.
We can take some questions? Great.
Actually, I will talk about something real quick here. You're talking about the mind control that the Greys have, and everybody hears about implants and everything like that, but I really believe that the implants, it measures what's called the syntax sensory information, and it enables them to see what we see, hear what we hear, and also, like through synthetic telepathy, that they can control what they want us to do. And I think sometimes, even in circumstances when we're not taken, that they can control when they want to put up a scenario that they can monitor, especially that would have to elicit some sort of emotion.
Yes.
Because I believe that, we're even getting close, and I'm pretty sure we got the technology from them, but,
Yes.
to doing the same type of things, which is getting really scary, because...
Really, like those clones you saw.
Well, with the implants and stuff, there's stuff with the nanotechnology that we have now. It's just getting easier and easier to put little mini computers in people, basically, because that's what they are.
Exactly.
And if they start latching on, I really think that the implants are just like the small grays, and it's my belief small grays are biological robots. And I think that the implants work exactly the same way, that they're not just a foreign object, that they actually adapt biologically to your body. So that's why I encourage people that have had these kind of experiences to not be ashamed to talk about it, because it's not something that you've done on your own free will, and that the mind control, especially with the Greys, it's beyond comprehension. So it's nothing to be ashamed of, and try to deny. and be embarrassed about, because it's something that you cannot control. So.
That's right, and I have a question about that. Okay, my name is Gray, as the name of this person on here. He said, do you think that all grays are organic robots? Okay, well, they're just a little lagged behind us, so
Well,
you already said that. So
well, not all grays. I don't think the tall ones are. I think the tall ones are clearly in charge. And I believe that the smaller grays that most often are talked about are definitely biological robots. They all look very similar. They act very similar. They seem to have a hive mentality. One of the things that I've learned over the years is they're purely logic-based. If you do something, if you react in any way that's against logic, something that's not a logical thing to do, they don't know how to react. I have a little story in the book about that, where I did something like that, and it almost, they backed off. They all kind of huddled with each other against the wall for a few minutes until they got control of me again. And so there is a difference. To answer your question, I do think that they're actually created by the tall grays, more or less as workers, and they just have an agenda to do, and that's one of the reasons they have no empathy. I mean, they're just they do very condescending things. After a while, they tell you the same things, how they're not going to hurt you, and blah blah blah. And after a while, I mean, it's just totally it's so condescending, it's ridiculous, because how many times have you told me that, and you're still going to do whatever you're going to do,
exactly.
and sometimes it's not very pleasant. So, but I don't think the tall grays are. I think the tall grays are an actual species.
Okay, so one person here says the tall grays work for the mantis. They think. Whoops, I lost it. The tall grays work for the mantis. Question from chat is, Bridget, why do they use people we know to act like zombies? To observe our emotions, or just make the hybrids?
Well, it would depend on the person's genetic makeup. I think they do have a particular fondness for certain genetic makeup. If that person has the genetic makeup that they're looking for, that would have to do with it, for sure. If they don't, then it's the other, where they're just going to monitor your emotional reaction to it.
Okay. Whoops. Okay, well, right now, okay, there was one that tall grays work for the mantis, they said. The mantis worked for the Mayan women. That's somebody's opinion. And then Ron, how many different types of grays have you encountered?
Well, mostly just the two standard, the talls and the small grays, but I have encountered various forms of hybrids. So, if you include them, I remember one time actually being in a very large facility with the tall gray. And the tall gray is very civil to me to this day. Will occasionally answer my questions. Strange as it may sound, I don't fear him after all this time, and I know he's probably the one that orders some of this stuff that's being done, but he has always been cordial to me, and has answered questions when I've had him to a certain degree. But I have seen, I was in being escorted down a hallway of a really large area. I don't believe it was anything here because of the lighting and just the shapes and stuff of the walls and the whole structure itself. And we were approached by another human-looking man coming toward us, and he was carrying something. And I believe this was set up, but once again, to sort of monitor my reaction to it. But this guy looked very much like the guys that I had witnessed before that I talked about earlier. And I don't know if it's the same guy or not, but he looked very much like him. And he had this looked like a blanket type, and he stopped, and I was just standing there with the tall gray, and he opened the blanket, and it was just a hideous looking, deformed, to me looked deformed, baby. And it was alive, and I didn't want, I knew what they were doing, and I didn't want to like overreact to it.
Right.
Because my theory is now the least amount I do that, the least amount they're going to try to get, they're going to put me in those situations. And, you know, the physical stuff, you know, I've got scars all over my body from stuff, puncture marks, scrape marks, and, you know, and recently I will talk about later, I'm getting scratched up a lot, but, you know, all that stuff can heal, but it's the mental stuff that's the hardest to heal. And some of the mental experiments is some of the hardest stuff to get over. So I try not to react, and so I don't know if that was a gray. It seemed to me like a bad experiment gone wrong. I felt so sorry for whatever it was, and I know they tried to get a reaction out of me by stopping on purpose and just, you know, opening up the blanket and letting me see this this poor unfortunate thing, but. I didn't react. You know, I tried my best not to react, and even though, you know, deep inside I really was, you know, because I just felt so sorry for it, whatever it was, and then, you know, they wrapped it up and kept on going.
Huh. Wow, that's interesting. Okay, do you think short grays work for the? I couldn't quite read this, but they're only extraterrestrial race corporation with the military industrial experiences. So I guess what they're saying is, do you think that some of the grays work with the military, is what I'm gathering from this, from your experience?
No doubt. You know, there's no doubt. I mean, even logic will tell you that, you know, you can go back to Roswell. If you look at mankind, I won't even get into the ancient history of things, because I believe there's been civilizations here way back before what we think. But if you look at just us, you know, over the last several millenniums and stuff, and how we advanced, how far we were advancing. I mean, it took us thousands of years, you know, just to get up to make cars that went 40 miles an hour and prop planes. And then all of a sudden, since Roswell, we've got stealth technology, we've got digital technology, we've got nanotechnology, and we did this great leap, evolutionary technological leap, and in 70 years that we didn't accomplish in thousands of years before that. So I think logic would dictate that we had help. So. You know, we'd like to think that we just all of a sudden got that much smarter, but I think science has already proven that our modern man's IQ is just 1 or 2 points different than ancient man's. So, you know, and it took him a while just to figure out how to get fire. So,
Yeah,
you know.
there's been a big leap. Now, Lano? Well, anyway, there's two people are wanting to know about smells. One asked if you smelled anything like sulfur, urine, ammonia, or anything like that while you were on board the ships or with the ETs.
I think a lot of people have reptilian experiences, probably have that more, at least that's what I've been told. I've actually recently been having suspicious of having some reptilian experiences. I've witnessed what I would perceive as a hybrid reptilian. But I think those kind of smells go more along with the reptilians than the grays. The environments that I've been in, I haven't really noticed any kind of smell that I remembered. It's a very cold, very sterile environment, and you know, I think that it's a different situation with people that are having reptilian experiences.
So, tell us a little bit more about why you feel like you're having reptilian, and do the ships vary? Are there differences that it could possibly be a military when I say military, we're talking deep black ops is what we're talking. We're not talking our military. They don't even have any idea. But what would you say in your reptilian experience? Why?
Well, the first thing that I experienced with that was having and when you say dream and people think you're just dreaming this stuff, but there's really a big difference between the kind of they're I mean, a dream is just your subconscious mind surfacing anyway, but these dreams that experiencers have, there's a definite difference between just your average everyday dream. I mean, you know the difference of if it's actually a memory. And I was walking on this platform, and all of a sudden I'm in a room that looked relatively normal. You know, so I went from sort of this futuristic craft type thing, and then I'm in a room. Now they did that to me a couple times before, but in a different scenario. And in the middle of the room was a guy sitting on a chair, a human. It looked like human, but of course doesn't mean that he was. And he was trying to get me, and this is not in the book, by the way, this is recent stuff, and he was trying to get my attention, you know, like, he was trying to get me worked up, you know, he's like, you know, you better come in. He was real excitable and everything, and there was nothing in the room except just this plain chair and this guy sitting right in the middle of the room, except there was this large vat to my left that was a good 10 feet long and maybe 6 or 7 feet wide, and it was in the corner. I have no idea what it was used for, and there was a woman in the far back corner of it in a fetal position, like crying and all upset and everything. And he kept saying, come in, you know, they're coming, and I kept saying, who's coming? I really was very confused on what was happening. And he got up from the chair and he went over and he got in this vat thing. It was only a couple of feet deep, and went to the very end of it and huddled down with the woman. And they were just really scared. And he goes, "You got to come here, come in with us. You know, they're coming." And I kept saying, "Who's coming?" He goes, "You know who's coming." And so finally, I just like, okay, I'll get in the thing, you know, this vat thing with you. And I did, and everybody's like, you know, fully clothed. This is, you know, and I stayed at the other end. And then I saw what I perceived as a hybrid, looked like a cross between human, gray, and reptilian.
How big was it?
It wasn't real large. I would say maybe 6 feet. You know, it wasn't like enormous. The odd thing was it was nude, and it walked to the middle of the room. And when I actually was frightened by it. I'd never seen anything like that before. I was really taken back by it, and I went down and joined the other two people, and I kind of huddled down with them. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm trying to get I'm noticing like the attributes about it. It was white ashy kind of looking, the skin. I noticed like it was muscular, you know, like in the arm areas and stuff like that. But it had longer fingers, but it seemed to be more human-like looking fingers. And the thing that was really kind of funny, in a weird sort of way, was that I noticed that it had a penis, a male, like a human-looking penis, but its testicles were abnormally large. I think that was the thing that they wanted me to see.
Oh, I see.
You know, like they've got to this point where they can now also mate and do this stuff, you know. And facially, it had sort of a bulbous head, very weird eyes, and it started walking toward me, or toward us, and the people were just going into hysterics, and I wasn't going into hysterics, but I did definitely have my attention. It walked over, it got in, it walked up to me, leaned over, and its finger, I could see its finger coming at me. I could see a flat tip on the end of its finger, and it just touched me right in my third eye, and I blacked out. And that was all I remember. But since then, we've begun having these experiences. I'm going to bring some slides to the lecture. I believe Gina's involved now. I'm waking up one morning. I know we're getting short on time, but I had she woke up and she had 2 scratch marks on each side of her collarbone. It's never happened ever before. The same morning, I noticed a 5-inch gash down my shin. The very same time she wakes up with these scratches, got our attention for sure. Making the bed, and I see a what appears to be bloody, I don't know if that's blood or not, we haven't got it tested yet, handprint, 4 fingers between our pillows. It looks like a left hand. It looks like something leaned over her. It was on her, you know, where it would have been left hand on her side of the bed. So we're starting to have like occurrences like that. In fact, just about 2 weeks ago, I found a gash that went all the way across my body.
Oh, wow.
And oddly enough, like healed like really, really fast. I took pictures of it though as we're documenting all the stuff. So, you know, so we're starting to have some experiences that I think involves more than just the grays now.
Since you got back here?
Yeah. No, it started right before we got here, but I've had one since I've been here already.
Oh, okay. Well, at least you know it's not just here. You know, and that's what we find, that people will be moving all over the place thinking they're going to get away, and they can never get away.
Never, it doesn't work.
So I would like you just to tell us once again about your book and about your organization, you know, the paranormal whatever.
Yeah, the paranormal stuff we do is under Halo Paranormal. You know, I think the genre is kind of there's a lot of this that fits together, and it's sad that too many people separate all this stuff, because when you get into it, a lot of it is dimensional, and it crosses over. And you know, there's a reason for that. You can find us on Facebook at Halo Paranormal. My website's childrenofthegrays.com, and it's Grays with an E. I've got a book trailer up there and more information about the book. You can find it at Amazon. I price it very reasonable because, you know, nobody's in this to make money. I wanted to get the story out, you know. And so I tried to keep the prices where anybody could buy a Kindle, you know, if they, or even the paperbacks are very reasonably priced. So I just want to make more public awareness, and I want to help other people that's out there that's experienced this same type of thing, because we all need help to get through this.
Well, I hope you come back to our group on the internet, and you know, you'll find it very helpful, and Gina can come too, I'm sure.
Yeah. We've been so busy since we got back here, but you know, I'm hoping to get back on there again. I love that kind of stuff, and I'm glad to see you doing it.
And come to our local group. We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be great.
In fact, yeah, be talking to you about that. So, once again, Bret is going to be at the Macmillan Irish Pub in here on Tropicana in Las Vegas. So thank you, Bret, so much. It was very interesting and very exciting, and boy, it was kicking memories like crazy loose for me. So thank you. And thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next month for Starseed Awakening, when I'll have another exciting and interesting guest. Bye-bye.